Keeping all these acronyms in order is getting tough. Ladies and gents, welcome back. CERB is trending, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. We'll get into why that's in the news today in a moment. Let's just give a little brief history of what it is. The Canadian Emergency Response Benefit and EI statistics we have here. So the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, CERB, was introduced because of the lockdowns. So when the lockdowns took place, the Canadian government came in and said, well, we're shutting down your business, so we're going to give a benefit to people who cannot work. Now, how much of that was doled out and to how many people? So we had 8,900,000 people applied for it and actually received it out of 27,560,000 applicants. I believe this is how many applicants because there was several runs of it. The total cost us $81.64 billion. That is the stats. Now, why is it in the news? So it was in the news here. This is going back to February 2022, February 10th. Nearly 12 million in CERB payments was sent to applicants with foreign addresses. Federal government sent nearly 12 million in Canadian Emergency Response Benefit payments to 1,600 applicants of foreign addresses during the first 7 months of the pandemic. Scroll down here. Nearly half, 720 of the 1,600 individuals applied with mailing addresses from the United States, another 90 in the UK, 80 in India, France 60, Australia 50, Ireland, and the rest in a dozen other countries listed. Now, we're going to expect fraud in cases like this, but when they dole it out and they're in a real hurry, you're going to expect a little bit more fraud than usual. Now, a closer look at where that money went, $82 billion of CERB was paid out. Here's an article talking about how there's a big divide between rural and urban Canadians as cities relied more on accommodations, tourism, food as drivers of the economic growth. The more they would have been sideswept by the pandemic. Larger centers have a higher concentration of jobs in these areas, said David McDonald, senior economist at the Canadian Centre of Policy Alternatives, who studied the CERB. More rural areas in the country and certain cities have higher reliance on say, natural resources wouldn't have been hit so hard. So yeah, it was generally an urban thing. Now, the reason why it gets trending, and it's been trending several times because there's several runs of this that occasionally happen through as the weeks and months roll on. CERB is over and has been over since, I believe, September of 2020. I seriously do not understand how the government gave people CERB so they could manage through COVID, and now they're sending letters asking for all or some of it back. If someone needed CERB, it's because they didn't have tons of savings. You see how that works? Well, I think the end here, because you didn't have tons of savings, isn't the issue. That's a personal issue. The government shutting down your business and making it so you can't go to work is a reason for CERB. But however, what's turning out is there's a lot of people who were able to go to work, but they opted out of work in favor of CERB. And this is where a lot of people are getting letters to go and pay some of it back. Some CERB recipients set to get notices that they owe feds some of the aid. Some Canadians who received the pandemic jobless benefit are set to receive notices that they have to repay some of the aid they received last year. The Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, which is a mouthful, I keep having to say it, but it's CERB for short, was rolled out at the onset of the pandemic during a historic drop in the labor market. 3 million jobs lost and 2 million people with hours cut. The government sent $2,000 payments to some recipients who applied through Service Canada as an advance on the first 4 weeks to help households who saw sudden loss of earnings. Now, I know of people who voluntarily left their jobs to collect this benefit. There were people who opted out and went back and worked under the table under this benefit, making more money than they would have had they not done any of this at all. The idea was to reconcile the payment at some point during the time CERB was available, which was why many who got the advance saw a break in benefits during the summer of 2020. The government now says there are still recipients who owe some or all of the $2,000, specifically those who were not entitled to aid or didn't collect CERB for at least 20 weeks. Employment Minister Carla Qualtrough says anyone who needs it will get a flexible repayment schedule, and there will be no penalties, interest charged on the overpayment. Canadians will not be put into financial hardship by having to repay emergency benefits they have received, Qualtrough said in a statement, despite what you may hear on Twitter. People aren't always so forthcoming with all the information in the hyperbolic chamber that is Twitter. Those who owe money will get notices from Service Canada outlining how much they owe, the process to repay, and how they can appeal the decision. So there is an appeals process if you get one of these letters. This report, the Canadian Press, was first published November 25th, 2021. So this is not new news for anyone, but maybe people are not paying attention until they get these letters. Here on Twitter, this is Josh saying, the Liberal Party is still clawing back as much CERB payments from poor people as much as possible, while ignoring the abuses by wealthy benefactors. Just been notified that I'll be receiving a notice of debt in the mail. Now, wealthy benefactors, this is baited language for saying that wealthy people got money and they're not being asked for it back. Now, businesses also had a different benefit program if because of the economic downturn, because of government actions, businesses were also given a benefit. Now, that is a thing. People keep saying that CERB was a great idea until the government asked for it back. This is what I put on Twitter. I've been pretty vocal at the fact that CERB had been abused and people were abusing the system. And yeah, it's not surprising that they're asking for it back. It's just the way it goes. But the conversation continues because here we go. CERB was a trial run for UBI. How to get Canadians lazy and dependent on the government. Now, my argument would be a little bit different. I wouldn't call people lazy. I would call them opportunistic. I don't know if laziness has to do with it, because people would a lot of these people. I'm just going on not my personal experience, but experience that I saw other people doing, was working under the table and then collecting this money. So they weren't being lazy. They were just being opportunistic and collecting a paycheck. Now that tweet goes to this tweet that says, here we go, folks. CERB, COVID-19 response, was a rehearsal for a ton of World Economic Forum programs to take root. And this is, of course, by UBI Works, which is a Twitter page that I've been following closely, that every time CERB gets trending, it's on there putting 20 tweets an hour out about how CERB was a great example of how UBI, Universal Basic Income, can work in Canada. This is a propaganda Twitter handle that puts out ads for universal basic income. It's a lobby group that's trying to push universal basic income, saying, we believe that basic income is a vital tool for addressing many of the complex challenges Canada will be facing in the coming decades. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that, you know, people are getting educations and not finding jobs. But I mean, my argument there would be they're not getting educations in anything that would lead to a job. I think our education system is definitely failing us. But yes, there are a lot of people that are saying that, well, and especially the World Economic Forum types that are saying that automation is going to put people out of work. I disagree with this principle. It's the same argument that was brought about when the tractor was invented, that when everyone is no longer working in the fields, they're going to have nothing to do and they need to be paid somehow. What are we going to do? It turned out they had a whole lot of other things that they could possibly do. But yeah, this is a propaganda page, a lobby group. And if you go to their hyperlink, it gives you all kinds of links of how you can lobby the government for universal basic income. So let's just put that on our on our roster of things to watch out for, and keep your eye on the intrawebs. If you're not, like I say to people watch this channel, I go to Twitter so you don't have to. But if you feel quite encouraged to go and do so yourself, head on to Twitter, give me a follow. Clyde, do something. But yes. You can pay attention to lobby groups like this and what they're saying and what's trending and what's going on the internet, because this is where you get the news first before it gets aggregated out to the main news sites. Anyway, that's all I got for you on this one for now. We'll keep you posted on this definitely, and keep on trucking.